So we're talking about digital fundraising strategy. I first want to start with how you would define digital fundraising strategy. And as part of that, what do you think nonprofits frequently misunderstand about it? And then, how would you kind of reframe it for them?
Yeah, I'm gonna flip that question for you, but I think that they make the same mistake everyone else makes, which is confusing strategy with channels and tactics. It's looking almost too micro and trying to measure it the same way that we measure offline channels. And one of the great pieces of working with an agency is that you don't get access to just my brain. You get all of the brains on our department. So I can't take credit for what I'm about to say, but essentially what our digital fundraising strategy methodology really comes down to is just a simple equation at the root of it all, which is website traffic times conversion times average gift. And all of that equals your digital revenue. So those are really just three different levers that you can pull and push on and modify your strategy to impact one of those three metrics. And all of the different channels and tactics that we do utilize all have different little superpowers that can help you move the needle on those three different parts of the equation.
I love it. Okay. And so, from your experience working with all of our great nonprofit clients, what do you think separates those nonprofits that see really consistent digital growth from those that might feel stuck or more in a reactive state with their digital fundraising strategy?
I suspect I'll be kind of preaching to the choir a little bit here with folks watching, but to me, the biggest difference is whether or not leaders at your organization view it as a proactive growth channel or a reactive communication mechanism. Is it a place to get your message out, or is it a venue for growth and revenue? And measuring success with the same lens as you would with traditional channels like direct mail is a non-starter. You've got to view the digital client relationship cycle differently, and viewing it with the same lens as a traditional direct mail relationship cycle is going to set you up for failure. You've got to look at digital results a little bit differently, but you also don't want to look at them in isolation, because a lot of the digital channels and tactics impact one another. It can be an attribution nightmare depending on your tech stack. But they are all truly an ecosystem. And I mentioned relationship cycle, and that's an intentional word. It's a cycle. So looking at all of it together and realizing that different channels and different tactics have a different place within that cycle help impact that entire viewpoint.
Omnichannel fundraising
Yes.
is a big part of digital fundraising strategy. I think that sometimes when nonprofits hear that, that phrase makes them feel like they need to be everywhere at once. What would be your response to that?
What buzzword will they come up with next? I lived through the multi-channel years. Now we're in an omni-channel world. I'm sure AI will be in the next one, but whatever buzzword you use, I think we're all trying to convey the same thing. But what it doesn't mean is every channel. It means just having a connected experience. Notice I'm saying connected and not duplicative. Every channel and every tactic, like I said, has its own kind of superpower, and it has a separate goal. And I'm not saying don't try new things, but if you're going to give it enough power and support to truly gauge impact. And I intentionally say the word impact and not necessarily revenue, because every new channel, every new toy, every new tool that we try isn't necessarily going to have a directly attributable revenue stream, but it will likely impact those streams in other areas. So making sure that you aren't just trying it for a very, very short period of time and then declaring it successful or not, because it's all about seeing that bigger picture and looking at the overall impact.
Yeah. What would you say, from your experience, are some of the most common mistakes that you see organizations make when they're building their digital fundraising strategy? And maybe which one do you think is the hardest to fix?
I am a bit biased because I come from the digital background. So a lot of the language that I hear everyone in the industry using is very direct mail coded. And that's not necessarily bad. It's just a function of how this industry, how it's evolved and where we started. So I think that that's honestly one of the hardest things to fix is our own mentality, whether that's on the agency side or on the organizational side. Is getting out of that mindset, and how we measure things is not always going to be equitable to how we measure more traditional media mix channels like direct mail. The other thing that I would say, and I repeat this probably daily or weekly, is that the channel of engagement does not always mean the channel of conversion. And just because people aren't converting in those channels does not make those channels worthless. It just means they have a different value and a different place in that media mix, and oftentimes critical ones. If you don't fill that top of the funnel, you're not going to have anything towards the bottom of that funnel. So those are two things that I would say. I would also add, this is less of a digital fundraising thing than it is just a daily practice in my own life that I think also applies to work, which is try not to ascribe intent. Don't ascribe intent, meaning don't automatically jump to the worst conclusion. Don't automatically assume the worst. Don't automatically assume that that something a donor said applies to your larger donor base. If you've got one donor complaining about something, don't adjust your entire strategy based on the feedback from that one donor or that one board member or that one person. Look at it as a whole. And make sure that you're aligning the strategy with your mission, your goals, but also what you know to work and what your what the guidance is from all of your partners.
I love that. Great for us to take into our personal and
Indeed.
fundraising lives.
Right.
Okay, so my last question, just kind of wrap it up, is we're all about here at RKD designing your long-term growth. How would you say that a strong digital fundraising strategy plays a really important part of that building that long term?
Resilience.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Thank you. As opposed to short term revenue and things like that.
Yeah. I will actually leverage an architectural metaphor here. Like there are some things that require 2 years worth of planning. There are some like foundational aspects that do require that long road to plan. And those need to be core to the strategy, but you got to layer that on with more flexible, real-time decision making, especially in the digital area. If you're not relevant and timely, then you're already out of date. So picking the faucets on your house, picking the paint colors, you don't need 2 years to plan that. You've got to be flexible and willing to change with the market, with the industry, et cetera, et cetera. So when I think of those foundational things, I'm thinking your organizational priorities, obviously, but your tech stack is one of the most boring things to talk about. But I think on every webinar, every blog post, everything that I've ever done as part of RKD, that's become part of my own personal mission statement. There are so many options out there, and I've got a lot of opinions on that, but that's for another discussion another day. But having a really strong tech stack, and by that, by the way, I mean an email deployment platform, a donation processing platform, and a WordPress, or not WordPress, but like a website platform such as WordPress. Those three things are really going to make or break what your digital fundraising future looks like. So don't sacrifice making those giant, important foundational decisions because of a short-term budgetary constraint or limitation, because those are truly, truly critical to building and growing, and not just from a revenue perspective, but as an organization as a whole.
I love it. Any last thoughts?
I have so many thoughts, and I could talk about this all day, but for the sake of brevity, I won't. But if anyone ever wants to nerd out over tech stacks or things like that, then I'm your girl.